Dodgers and the Angels?
Okay, he's good.
Hi, Ramela.
Subway Series. No, they can't Subway Series. They just sent Dom Smith to Syracuse. I don't know
Okay.
what they're doing.
All right, thank you for your patience. Sorry for the delay. Welcome to the special meeting and work session of the Board of Education today, Wednesday, June 1st, 2022. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I just want to remind the audience that we have 2 exits at the rear of the auditorium, as well as exits at each side of the stage, and exits at the rear of the stage. I just want to introduce the dais. Going all the way across from my left, we have Trustee Tasneem Megji, Trustee Len Hirsch, Trustee David Keefe, Board Vice President Bob Fallerino, I'm Board President Mark Hamburg, Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Elaine Canis, our Deputy Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Danielle Gately, and our Assistant Superintendent of Business, Ms. Diane Castanway. I just want to start this evening with a moment of silence and yet again another school massacre, and I certainly want to ask everyone to take a moment to put the memories of the children and adults that were lost at the Robb Elementary School in our hearts as we just take a pause. Thank you for that. Since security is certainly always an issue, everyone that works here and on the Board of Education, we thought we would take a moment because we did receive a number of emails after last week's tragedy in regards to certain updates, one of which was the fence at Northside. And I really don't have much to say other than I can simply share that back in March, the end of March, the courts finally contacted lawyers for both sides and asked for availability of dates. It's now June. Nothing has happened with that yet. The courts have not signed a date for the appeal to be heard. The district continues to stand on the position that we, as we have always done, as school districts all across New York State always do, submit their plans and their requests to one entity, that being the State Education Department of New York. The State Education Department, the Buildings Department, granted that permit for that fence to be put up. It's the opposing position that we should have gone out for a variance, but it's our belief that there's very real reasons why the State Education Department takes a hold of issues such as this, because they don't want the concern of staff and student safety to ever be of any concern in regards to the prettiness of an appropriate fence or the way of something should be laid out. They believe it should be just based on the merits of what you're submitting to State Education Department, and we stand here today waiting for the appeal to be heard. I'm going to ask that the superintendent certainly update the community accordingly in this week's newsletter. I will also share that at the June business meeting, we're going to be giving a little further update in regards to our security, as we have done on a regular basis. I've asked Ms. Castanway to have our safety and security consultant that we have here on staff that walks all our buildings on a regular basis to share and update with the public as to the things that we've done. We may be looking at doing just, again, because it's fresh in our thoughts, and we received emails accordingly. Okay, so with that, I am going to go to open time. I don't think we got any slips. No? Okay, seeing no one for open time, I'm going to go through the special meeting action items first. I'm going to start with action item number 3.1. May I have a second? Mr. Fallerino, discussion. Just want to certainly welcome Ms. Cortez, who the board had an opportunity to meet this evening, and we welcome you to this position, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you for staying this evening tonight. You can give a wave after the vote. Is there any other discussion on 3.1? Seeing no further discussion, I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor? Item passes 5-0. Thank you and welcome again. And there she's waving back there. I'm going to take item number 3.2 by itself. May I have a second? Mr. Keefe, discussion? Seeing and hearing no discussion, I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor? Item passes 5-0. Thank you. I am going to take item number 4.1 by itself. May I have a second? Discussion. Mr. Keefe was the second. Discussion, I'm going to read something. Tonight, the Board of Education is expected to unanimously appoint Joseph M. Weiner as the Wheatley School's next principal, effective July 1st, 2022. After an extensive search and interview process involving 20 constituents from our district community, we are confident that Mr. Weiner possesses the professional experience, leadership skills, innovative vision, the commitment to build upon the reputation of the Wheatley School and to bring our students to the next pinnacle of success. His experience inspiring young adults to achieve their full potential will be a great benefit to all students. Some of Mr. Weiner's notable professional associations are Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development, New York State Middle School Association Region 8 Co-Director, New York State Education Department Essential Elements Schools to Watch Program Evaluator, New York State Middle School Association Long Island Regional Conference Planning Committee Member, School Administrators Associate of New York State, founding co-president of the Nassau-Suffolk Middle School Assistant Principals Association. Mr. Weiner holds a Bachelor of Arts in Biology and English from Tufts University, a Master of Science in Education and Literacy from Long Island University Post, a Master of Science in School Administration and Supervision from Touro College, and New York State Permanent Certifications in Biology, General Sciences 7 through 12, Reading Teacher K through 12, and School District Administrator. I want to thank the many members of our committee that spent countless, I believe the number was over 25, 26 hours throughout this extensive interview process. And on behalf of the Board of Education and our administration, and what I believe is going to be a 5-0 vote tonight, I want to welcome Joe Weiner to our school district and our community. So with that, I am going to call for the vote. All in favor? 5-0. Congratulations, Joe. Can you please stand? Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to grouping items 4.2 to 4.4. May I have a second? Mr. Keefe, discussion? Seeing and hearing no discussion, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Items passed 5-0. Thank you. And with that, I am going...
No, wait.
Oh, I am sorry. Thank you. I do have a walk-on item. I even wrote it down. I forgot it. I'm sorry. So I'm going to name this item 3.3. Excuse me. 3.3. Please let the record show I went back to 3.3. May I have a second? Ms. Maggi, I'm just going to read it to the public because it is a walk-on item. Recommendation to approve a contract with Susan Antolias for hearing aid equipment and services from May 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2022 at the rate specified in the contract. Discussion. Seeing and hearing no discussion, we'll call for the vote. All in favor? Item passes 5-0. Thank you. With that, I'm going to move into the work session. I'm going to turn it over to our superintendent.
Okay, and I'd like to invite Mr. Jensen to come up and tell us, as you all know, we were very excited to have been selected to pilot the Seal of Civic Readiness program, and we're going to have a presentation on that tonight.
Really excited to be presenting the work that we've done, and more importantly, the work that the students have done this year in earning the Seal of Civic Readiness. But before I move any further in this, I just want to thank the Board of Ed for giving me the time to make this presentation, and also to the board and central office for supporting this initiative. Probably answer this question, what is civic readiness? Many ways, but borrowing from some of the state ed literature, civic readiness is the ability to make a positive difference in the public life of our communities through the combination of these 4 domains: civic knowledge, civic skills, civic mindsets, and civic experiences. And this question also has many answers, but I picked just a few. Why focus on civic readiness? We know that voter participation in the United States hit a first time in 120 years that it was 63%. That still means 1 out of 3 Americans aren't voting. There's increased political polarization. The one study I have up here shows that when asking for preferences for a candidate in your party versus one who isn't, that gap has widened over the years. and also for some positive reasons. We have an opportunity to develop more student self-advocacy. So this study here was from the Journal of Adolescence. It talks about how when you can make students confident about civic participation, they're more likely to be actively involved in the future. And also how we can all benefit from civic readiness for our students, because when students have the opportunity to engage in service projects, it means they're going to be more likely to do so in the future. So what about the Seal of Civic Readiness? It's a diploma seal, a new credential that, as Dr. Canis said, is being piloted this year. It's earned through coursework and experiences in grades 9 through 12, so it does have a secondary focus. There is a civic initiative coming from the state, but this was the first real feature of it, and it did have that 9-12 focus. It's a +1 pathway for graduation. Now that it's been actually approved as a +1 pathway by the Board of Regents, it's something that we have applied for 2022-23. We're not anticipating our students needing the +1 pathway. In fact, by the time they earn this, they would already earn the humanities pathway. And then there's, of course, other options too. But it just shows that this seal has been adopted by the state as a more formal recognition after this pilot year. And so during this past school year, we applied in the spring of 21 to be a Seal of Civic Readiness pilot school. And we found out in the summer that we were one of 9 districts approved for the pilot, which we were pretty happy to see, of course, because we had to demonstrate our district and our high school's ability to provide students with programs that they need to fulfill the Seal of Civic Readiness requirements. And in the fall, we formed a Seal of Civic Readiness Committee. 3 social studies teachers, Mr. Ardito, Dr. Lazarus, and Mr. Portente, joined Dr. Feeney and myself as the committee. And we started looking at the literature released by the state and started to clarify pathways for our students, knowing what we know about Wheatley, how the extracurriculars, the service opportunities that are popular with our students, the projects and classes that they engage with, how they can be used for students to earn this credential. And in December, I had the opportunity to meet with all of our seniors through their social studies classes to introduce them to the seal. They had 3 months to submit their application digitally. They did that through Google Classroom. And then April, we reviewed those applications. A lot of students who took the time to submit the application were able to earn the seal. There were a handful who did not, and we gave them 3 weeks to resubmit, and many of the students who took advantage of that were able to earn the seal on the second round. So in order to earn this, a student needs to earn 6 points. I put it in quotes because the rubric that the state designed is pretty tricky. I'm not going to bore you with the fine details of it, but there's 2 main categories: proficiency in civic knowledge and civic participation. And you can see that the civic knowledge these are bullet points that many of our students meet. Completion of 4 social studies graduation, 4 social studies courses is a graduation requirement. So it was kind of like the first easy step, but beyond that, it gets a little more challenging. Mastery and proficiency on social studies exams. You figure the class of 22 had exemptions on both exams, so they actually missed an opportunity to earn some points here because that only counted as proficiency according to this rubric. Participation in advanced social studies courses. We have many AP offerings. Dual enrollment option would count for this as well. And completion of a research project. So we had students that easily maxed out this category, so to speak, because they also had to earn some points in the civic participation side. That means completing civics projects or participation in service learning projects, being involved in elective courses that focus on civic engagement, being involved in extracurriculars, and potentially completing work-based learning experiences. And I'm going to go through some of the specifics that students completed in the class of 2022, but you can see at the bottom, the key was not just completing these experiences for the amount of time that was required, but also the completion of a reflection form, and that's where I think the greatest value of the Seal of Civic Readiness came. Some of the civics projects that our students did, I'm not going to read you the full list, you can read it there. There's just a handful of them. The projects really fall into one of 2 categories. Either the students looked at an issue that has multiple perspectives surrounding it, and after exploring those perspectives, they proposed a way to address the issue that would be satisfactory to all sides, to the degree that's possible, of course. But it really had students understand that issues can have different answers, and finding one that's going to satisfy everyone is difficult. And some of these other projects looked very in-depth at a civic participation issue and proposed some ways that we can take that information forward to maybe promote civic engagement in the greater community. This list is the examples of service learning, and it shows the variety of service learning opportunities our students participate in. And in truth, Wheatley students have been doing this work well before the Seal of Civic Readiness was brought to them. But it just was a nice opportunity to show whether it was serving the community, working with younger students, working in medical fields, in internships. It's such this is just a small sample of some of what was presented to us by our students. And then finally, the extracurricular involvement. You'll see like there's a lot of clubs here that have direct ties to civic skills, such as mock trial and Model United Nations. And then there are some other clubs here that might not have such immediate impact or such a clear connection to civic readiness, but students were officers or captains of varsity teams, and through those they developed leadership capacities. So those also were ways that students were able to earn points for the SEAL. So what you can see, there's many different pathways for students who have different interests and different even academic profiles, so to speak, to earn the SEAL. This is the best part of the presentation, getting to go back to their applications and look at some of the reflections from students. So as I alluded to, the reflection process is the most important part. It requires students to think about how what they've done in high school contributes to their development as individuals. And so the reflection form typically consisted of 5 questions related to the type of experience. And in those 5 questions, students were asked to look at why did they get engaged, what were some of the challenges, what were some of the successes, and almost in all of the reflection forms, how did they individually benefit? So I took just some very small excerpts here. Here are some of the skills that you could see students talk about: better speaker, empathy, leadership, preparedness, teamwork, communication, patience, and understanding. These reflections show some of the specific work that students were doing and the impact it left with them, realizing the lack of resources for seniors, being inspired to work to cure Alzheimer's, understanding the impact of loneliness and isolation in the past 2 years especially, using one's talents such as artwork to reach the greater community. And these reflections, we saw so many of these, the big picture impacts, taking the skills to the career and the community, being involved in the groups that they connect with in high school and wanting to stay involved in those groups, realizing how important it is to help your neighbors because they're the people you see every day, and realizing the importance of stepping up and taking action because sometimes no one's going to take that first step unless it's you. And these all come from our current Wheatley class of 2022. And so here are the 27 Seal of Civic Readiness recipients. And while they're not here, I think we can give them a brief round of applause because it was pretty impressive. And so I've first titled this feedback on our experience, but that's part of the reflection process. The immediate upside was the recognition of students for their amazing work. Just one more way, as I introduced to students in December, a lot of students had finished or were just about to finish their application process for college, so this wasn't something that they could use to advertise themselves for college. And as I told them, it's really just a way to recognize what you've done over the last 4 years and celebrate yourself in one more way. And so for that, it's very valuable. I think for the middle reason is what I see as the greatest value. I was talking about this with the reflection forms, but really get students to take pause and say, being captain of this varsity team helped me develop as a leader. Taking that time to do that service activity wasn't just to help people, but I actually learned something from that too, and I can take that with me. And having students realize how they develop was the biggest upside because so many students have been doing this work. And we do hope that in the future we can encourage more students to get involved from this because our current senior class only had 4 months to submit their applications. But in the future we'll be able to, for example, now that the state has given its formal okay, introduce this to our juniors before the end of this year so they can take this information with them into the summer. And for our younger cohorts upcoming, they'll know even with more lead time how they can earn this credential. And hopefully We saw that a little bit with the current senior class, that maybe they put a little more into something they were already doing to hit the hour requirement, but I think it'll be more widespread with future groups. So our steps moving forward is to introduce this to the class of 2023, our current juniors, as I said, and then future cohorts, and make this a steady stream of information for students and make sure they're aware of the opportunity. We also tried a little bit in 11th grade this year while we continue to have our National History Day program. In 11th grade, we know that some students were looking for alternatives to that, and so we started to build a civics project in 11th grade as an option that still required research skills. We've been talking about digital media and news literacy. We did this in SWS for a little bit this year, our School Within a School program. We're talking about how to bring this into regular coursework. We relaunched an elective called Current Issues, instead as Navigating Opposing Viewpoints, where we'll talk about the importance of sources. Finally, this work has become so go hand in hand in what we're doing in both ELA and social studies, and to speak from the social studies perspective, we talk about sourcing so much. Don't just pick up a source and take it at its what it seems to be telling you, but look at where it's coming from and understand the value of that. And then, of course, getting to our earlier grade levels. As I started, SEAL Civic Readiness was a very secondary focus. We really want to expand this work. The state initiative is a K-12 initiative, but beyond the SEAL Civic Readiness, there hasn't been too much beyond that. We know the social emotional work is a really strong foundation for this, but it's the jump between just like the students' immediate community and their classroom to the abstract idea of the world beyond that is sometimes a tough jump to make, and in conversations with different grade level teams, it's like finding that right time to start to expose students to that is something that we're constantly discussing, and hopefully some of the summer curriculum work in grades 5 and 6 will also allow us to look for opportunities to just incorporate civics education into regular instruction. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you
Do you have any
very much,
questions?
Mr. Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen. I think the fun part or exciting part for the board is really when you talk about a program like this, but the slide that really shows so much of what we already have been doing for years here at the Wheatley School, and quite frankly, across all our schools, it's really, it really just brings it all together for us, so we appreciate that. I don't know if anyone on the board has anything they want to add or share.
Just how do you go about sort of the outreach with respect to just letting kids know that this is available, and sort of, you know, getting it into their mindset?
So I've visited directly through social studies classes. We are able to pull them into a Google Classroom site, so they kind of have like an online space to get information. Dr. Feeney's also pushed out information through the weekly newsletter so that parents can be informed about it as well. And I think that's just the start of it too, because it was a pilot program. We had a good feeling that if the state was piloting it, the direction they were going to move in was a more formal adoption of it. And now that we've seen that, we can look to maybe use our website to build a little bit more of a presence to do that outline. But mostly it's just face-to-face contact, our social studies teachers being some of the first contact, and myself. But the longer it's with us, I think we'll find more ways to expand that outreach.
And students that are in SWS could also get the have the opportunity.
Yeah,
whether or not it doesn't.
I would hazard a guess it probably out of that 27, it was like 7 or 8 were in SWS. Some of them actually use some of their SWS coursework as a way to earn some of those points, because some of those SWS courses are very much about understanding different perspectives or understanding civic responsibility.
Are there any questions from the public in regards to the presentation? No? Okay. There is? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you. It's, please come up.
Just a question regarding the fact that it's a pathway and not necessarily just a seal. Does it replace a region sequence? Like if for a child who's not necessarily science or math inclined?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. The trick with it is the humanities pathway is much more accessible than this, and by the time the student's going to earn enough points to earn the seal of civic readiness, in that process they probably have taken and passed both of the social studies regions, in which case they would have earned the +1 humanities pathway. So it's true, it can be accessible to a student who's finding struggles in other areas, but I think the way it's built, more often students will take advantage of that humanities pathway or a different pathway before they do the work to earn this one. But it'll be an option to them, and we did submit our application to have it as an approved pathway for our school.
And one last question, just for clarification. When you talked about 6 points, does each social studies course count as a point, or each Regents exam? Like, how is that
So
weeded out?
proficiency counts as a point, mastery adds an additional 0.5, so 1.5 for mastery. Participation in an advanced course is I think a half point, but because students have to earn points on the civic engagement side too, there is a point where they earn too many points, and then it's kind of redundant. So they can keep putting them and recording them, but it doesn't really earn them any additional credentials. So there is a lot of points to be earned on that side, but without the civic engagement piece, they aren't able to earn the whole credential.
Okay, because it seems like they could accumulate points very quickly.
Yeah, they max out at 4 on one end. They have to earn 2 full points on the civic engagement side.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks.
Sarah's question made me think of something. Today's Newsday had an article about the doing away of the history, the Regents, social studies of Regents, 11th grade, and because of COVID. And from what I gathered from it, Gloria Sesso and the New York State Council for the Social Studies was a little bit against the second year, the doing away with it, what is it, 23, 24, simply because some of the other suggestions that have been made throughout the years eliminates one of the social studies regions. And I just wondered if the New York State Council for the Social Studies has raised that issue at all during the development of this thing, that they might see this as a threat to.
You're saying the state council?
Yeah.
They've definitely released statements too. I think even with the movement, like the exemption, the most recent one, and related to the tragedy in Buffalo too.
Yeah, right.
That the +1, that humanities pathway is going to be one that a lot of our students continue to use for even they earn the advanced diploma. So it's true that it looks like maybe social studies was pushed aside, but I'm hopeful that it's not the case. And certainly, the program we have here at Wheatley, including the elective offerings and the advanced courses, that's not going to happen here. So.
I wasn't so much concerned about Wheatley as I was about the state. But,
Yeah, the state groups and the regional, like Long Island Council too, have released a lot of statements indicating what you just echoed, is the concerns about these regions exemptions surrounding social studies.
Okay, good.
Any other questions from the public on the topic? Okay, thank you very much,
Thanks.
Mr. Johnson. So with that, I know the agenda doesn't say it. I'm going to just bring back a second open time because we had a lot tonight. Anybody? Seeing no one, then I am going to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. I'm going to ask for a second. Mr. Hirsch, all in favor? 5-0. Thank you very much. Everyone have a good evening.